Alrighty, so we are back, episode 2. This will be a quick one. This will be a quick episode, I think. But we're here with Trey.
How's it going, guys?
Good. And Trevor.
Dude, I finally got the mic. I'm excited to be here, and I'm ready to make some stuff happen.
And we still got Brittany in the studio just to provide
Brittany's-
a little bit of side commentary.
Hi, yes, I'm still here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brittany.
We might have to take the mic away from Trevor at some point. I don't know.
I'll censor him. I'll be big time.
If
for
past
ya.
experience tells
Yeah.
us anything.
That's true. All right.
So yeah, what are we talking about today? Two things?
Yeah, we got two more topics really just to jump through here. The first one is a little tough. We got a
Yeah,
series.
we're going to start off with something a little bit sad from, what was that, the 16th?
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Yepers.
So there was I guess it was 2 different shootings committed by the same person within a matter of hours in Georgia, resulted in 8 people dead, which obviously very terrible. But the reason that this is such a big deal, in addition to being like one of the largest mass shootings in the last 2 years, because it's been a little bit quieter.
Which is good.
Yeah, definitely a positive.
Yeah.
But again, like,
Do you think that has anything to do with COVID? And
oh,
there can't be large
100% because of
gatherings?
COVID.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's
yeah.
all.
Like
That's all.
there's not as much opportunity
Okay,
for it.
side
Yeah.
note. Okay, bye.
No, excellent point, Brittany.
Yeah, that's true. That is a good point to bring up.
But yeah, the other reason that it's such a big deal and such a big news story is that 6 of the people that were killed were Asian American. So it's kind of brought up this issue of like hate crimes against Asian Americans, which by some sources has gone up 150% within the last year.
Yeah.
Which sounds staggering. When you look at the actual numbers, it's not quite as bad. Like obviously a jump of 150% and of something like this, it's terrible. Any loss of life is terrible. Hate crime, obviously horrible.
Of course.
But again, when you look at the numbers, like hate crime based on race is so low when you look at the numbers compared to other crimes. And only 4.4% of those are actually committed against Asians in America. So again, I feel like it's just smart to kind of assess those things. We want to make sure.
Yeah, so you have those stats pulled up by chance?
Yes.
So let's just for posterity's sake, let's talk through just percentages for each of those different groups.
Yeah, so as one might expect, African Americans, like anti-black hate crimes, 48.5% makes up. 15.7% is against whites, and 14.4% against Hispanics or Latinos. And then you also have like just smaller percentages, 3.5, 2.7, 2.6, with like Arabs, Native Americans, and other smaller groups like that.
Yeah.
But again, when you look at the actual numbers, like hate crimes against Asian, it's very low.
Yeah, and we had talked about this previously, but I think a decent point to bring up, the 15, Brittany said right away, that's terrible. The African American community is really disproportionately targeted, I think, in hate crimes. And I would agree. I would say definitely that's true. The question that I had raised was, are the crimes, is it just because that is the kind of the hot topic, that's what is looked for when a crime is committed against someone of color, being, a white on black crime historically? Is there crime that's taken place against white people that is maybe racially charged that we just don't talk about? Is it thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I definitely think that's the case, that when any act of violence is committed by a white person against a person of color, it's always viewed through that lens, where people are thinking, oh, that's because of their skin color. Whereas when a crime like that is committed against a white person, that's typically not the first thought. So maybe that's why the percentage is what it is.
And Brittany had brought up a point earlier too, that like statistics can be used in so many different ways on either side of the argument. You said you had found an article, am I correct in saying this? You found an article that used statistics on both the right and the left side of politics.
No, that wasn't.
Well, yeah, it
wasn't
cited
directed-
the same source.
Yeah,
right?
it wasn't
Right,
directly.
right, right.
It wasn't directly used for this specific topic,
Right.
but that was used just
about
in general.
like election interference and how like the right and the
Right,
left
so-
use it. Yeah.
The article was, so I have this, you guys should all follow them. It's called Ground News. I love them.
Okay.
It's a media comparison organization, and basically it was from the same primary source that the FBI released information that there was foreign intelligence that tried to intervene on the 2020 election.
Yeah.
So a very left-leaning news source, aka CNN, highlighted that Russia was involved in the 2020 election, and they highlighted that Russia wanted Trump to win. Fox News, very, very right-leaning media organization, claimed that there was no Russian interference whatsoever. These are both true, but both organizations highlighted different facts of the primary source. And this can be true for the FBI statistics. Granted, I would hope the FBI has more integrity than CNN and Fox.
You mean the Communist News Network doesn't have integrity? What?
Yeah, but just to talk about like hate crimes, I wonder what the process is to determine a hate crime.
Yeah,
You know
no.
what I mean? Like, is it just?
It is an individual basis, like case by
Yeah,
case.
it has.
Right.
It has to be. I
But
think.
what are the credentials? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so it's really just like about the Civil Rights Act. So when those civil rights are infringed, basically they determine that the crime only happened, or like the intent behind the crime was because the person is a certain religion, certain race, those kind of things that are outlined in the Civil Rights Act.
So
It was a
when
factor
people say anti-Christian things to me, is that considered a hate crime?
No, because they're just saying things to you. But if they assaulted you because you're a Christian, that is a hate crime.
Yeah.
Because they're assaulting you for no other reason than because you're a Christian. And it goes the same way with Muslim.
Yeah, and I think in that it could be, they could assault you because you have red hair and they hate redheads, but you're
Yeah.
also a Christian, and that makes it worse. You know what I mean? When somebody
I'm
attacks,
just the worst.
yeah, we were talking about, we were talking about earlier in the previous podcast about my sister saying, you're a terrible person, you're a white cisgender male. Like, there's so many things that, like, you could factor in so many different equations in that. They could just attack you for all of those reasons, and I think that would fall under.
Yeah, but there are
under
those
certain-
specific things, and
Yes.
that's how we get hate crimes.
Yeah.
Because they're committed for those reasons.
Well,
So
I
keep
mean,
going with your statistics here. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say hate crimes just really make me sad.
Well, yeah,
They make
as,
me
as
so
they
sad.
should. Like, it's terrible that
Yeah.
like, the only reason someone would,
I know.
And that's
in this case, commit murder is because someone is. of
And
a certain
again,
color.
everything we're saying here is not to take away or subtract from any
Right,
hate
yes.
crimes or any that, like we've said previously, like there's going to be crappy people no matter
Everywhere.
what. There's
Anywhere,
crappy people
everywhere.
everywhere. You know what I mean? There's crappy people on the right. There's crappy people on the left. That's just the fact of life. That's a matter of the world in which we live. We live in a broken world, and as Christians, we believe that we are all born naturally evil.
Isn't that so nice to know? We don't have to debate that. It's just
As
like
Christians?
fact.
Yeah.
It's like you're a terrible person.
We're
Get used
all
to it.
terrible people. It was funny. We were talking about that today in one of my classes. One of the Bible professors that we have here was just saying, a lot of people will say, children, they're so cute, they're so innocent, they're born with this, everybody was born good. And he's like, no, that's not the case. Like, I don't care how tired mommy is. I want milk. And I'm going to scream and yell until I get milk. We're just born with this natural, terrible instinct. And that was, it's a trivial, funny thing that he used, but it is true. Like, we are all born evil, and we're all born with that sin nature. So, like, coming back to the topic, there's going to be crappy people,
Yeah, and terrible things happen. And obviously, our goal here is not to make light of those things.
No.
We just think it's important to, like, assess these things further than just what you're necessarily seeing in the news.
Yeah.
Especially like in examples of hate crime where people are saying, oh, like violence against Asian Americans it's so elevated, it's so much worse than it's ever been. When you look at that 150% increase, number-wise and like the number of cases, it's really not that much more significant.
Yeah.
So like that can be,
Yeah, 100% increase from 1 is 2, So there is and again, terrible things have happened, but and again, we talked about earlier, like Donald Trump didn't help. Donald Trump doesn't say the best things when he calls it the China virus or the Kung flu. It doesn't really
oh yeah,
help
I
the
completely agree.
situation.
But it goes both ways,
Yes.
right? When you look at the way this is being covered, and
Exactly.
from what I've seen in all the available evidence, again, I've only looked at a couple different sources. Like
About 4
I've
different
tried
articles,
to
yeah.
kind of find some unbiased stuff. I've looked at both sides.
Yeah.
But what I've kind of seen here is that this guy was not, like, his crime wasn't racially motivated. He didn't kill them because of that. Like, he had some clear mental issues. He believed he had a sexual addiction, and this was his dark, twisted way of eliminating temptation
Yeah.
of places that he used to, like, visit.
Yeah.
So I think I read, you just said he had a sexual addiction. And just to highlight on that, he I can't say it.
Fetishized?
Fetishized.
Fetishized?
Oh no.
But he did that to Asian women, and that's why he did that. And I think that goes back to our previous episode of feminism. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's really detrimental what radical feminism is doing. We've just witnessed it. If you fetichize,
Oh no.
fetishize, whatever the heck that word is.
Fetishize?
Fetishize women.
I feel like that's as
do you
close as
drop
we're gonna
the H?
get. Yeah, I feel like that's as close as we're gonna get.
But this is one severe reaction that we're seeing
Yeah.
from that, and it's really scary.
Yeah,
and
I mean, you
sad.
can't really blame anything other than this guy clearly had mental issues. Like, normal people don't go to that extent, but
So the problem is this, though, because I've seen a lot of stuff posted about this today. I have a lot of friends that are rather liberal. I find myself to be a little bit more moderate, but Trey's I'd say very conservative. But I think what I've seen is a lot of people that are playing the race card as soon as this happened. Like, I didn't even know there was a shooting, and then all of a sudden I saw racial shooting against Asian Americans, and I was like, oh no, like, this is a terrible thing. And then you start digging into it, and you realize, like, no, this guy was really disturbed. He had a lot of issues, and he even said, didn't he say himself that it wasn't racial, it was completely
yeah.
Granted, he fetishized, as she says, these Asian women, but it wasn't. He didn't kill them because they were specifically Asian. He just had this, his sort of deleting of his temptation that he was trying to do. Again, super messed up. But something that you dive deeper into the answers, the questions that you ask. It's what do you? Brittany looks like she has something
She
she
just
wants to.
grabbed
Well,
the
I was
mic.
just gonna say, like, there's a lot of hurt happening in the Asian community, and I think, like, the vocalization of stopping Asian hate stems more out of this, not out of this shooting, but I feel like the shooting is just like icing on the cake. Like, there's a lot of things happening in
Brought light, maybe.
yeah, like in Asian countries as well. Like, if we just look like a year ago in Hong Kong, or we look at Myanmar and what's happening there, if we look at the Asian population in China and their genocide,
Yeah.
confirmed genocide that is going on,
Yeah.
there's just a lot of hurt in that community. And you think, like, there's a girl, no, she's actually from Malaysia. But there are some, like, Asian people at this school who they hear about these things happening abroad to their home, to their family, to their friends. They come to America, which is a great country and should be a safe haven. And you have Donald Trump saying things like the Kung Flu or the China virus.
Yeah.
And you have other instances of Asian hate crimes. I don't know if you guys saw that video where a black man in, I forget what city it is, but he just went up to an Asian man and he violently pushed him, and he was knocked out cold. And to see that, that's a lot of hurt, and that's a lot of hurt for a community that is very community oriented. You know what I mean? Like, in America, we're very individualistic. For the Asian community, it's like, oh my word, you've hurt one of us, you've hurt us all.
Yeah, I would definitely say historically that seems to be the trend that is found in that community, and I think you make some great points there. We're gonna take a little commercial break. We're gonna hear a word from our sponsor, and then we'll be right back.
If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a great podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Alrighty, and we're back. some great conversation there, I think. We're going to wrap that section up, and we're going to actually move on to a new topic, St. Patty's Day. I love St. Patty's Day. I think it's really fun. Growing up Irish, I'm fourth generation Irish. My great grandfather was Irish. Grew up Irish. My grandfather has a lot of some kind of cool stuff that he's shown me, pictures of my great grandparents, and I actually went to Ellis Island and found some really cool stuff about my family through that. And I just really enjoy the culture. I've done a lot of research on Ireland and just kind of their history and stuff like that coming up through school. So a brief history of St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day observes the death of St. Patrick, the patron saint of Ireland. What?
And just crazy fact, he's British.
Yeah, so I thought this was kind of funny. He is British. The reason we celebrate him, though, is because he brought Christianity to Ireland. And when we talk about Christianity, we talk about the Catholic Church. He was the one that brought the Catholic Church to Ireland, and Ireland is majority Catholic. He actually used the shamrock to explain the Trinity, which I didn't know. I found that as a really cool kind of fact. I think it's a really cool way to explain the Trinity, and that's kind of how he explained the Trinity to the local people, and he really just started. There's a lot of different kind of legends about St. Patrick, that he drove all the snakes out of Ireland, and he did X, Y, or Z, but it is a really cool celebration of culture and celebration of just the Irish culture, as well as St. Patty as the individual. So the question that has kind of been raised in the last couple of days to me through some of the social media people that I follow and stuff like that is this whole topic, and kind of what we've been talking about a little bit here so far, is this cultural appropriation. Cultural appropriation has always been kind of confusing and elusive to me. I never really understood why it was such a big deal. And I think I have over this last year, especially in a lot of our understanding of our school going through the whole diversity audit and what we sat through, hearing a lot of people during Black History Month come out. A lot of the Black Lives Matter stuff has brought light to this. Cultural appropriation, so I Googled it, jumped on the Google, and I got two different definitions. The first one is from Wikipedia. We love Wikipedia.
Never go wrong with Wikipedia.
The reason I actually love Wikipedia is because it's the definition of the people, and I think this word and these two words are something that we've defined as a culture, right?
I mean, so does Urban Dictionary, but
I
no
know.
one uses
Yeah. So
A little more appropriate.
Yeah, just a little bit. Cultural appropriation is the adoption of an element or elements of culture or identity by members of another culture or identity. This can be controversial when members of a dominant culture appropriate from disadvantaged minority cultures. Okay, so I read that, right? And I was like, I need a better definition of this. So I jumped on, and verywellmind.com, cultural appropriation refers to the use of objects or elements of a non-dominant culture in a way that doesn't respect their original meaning, give credit to their sources, or reinforces stereotypes or contributes to oppression. All right, so I like these definitions of cultural appropriation. I really have no problem with these definitions. The problem that I have is when we start using it for everything and anything, and we start calling everything racist. When everything becomes racist, nothing is. And that's when we lose the power of calling something racist. When there's true racism, we need to be able to call. And it's the whole concept of that story when we were little kids of the boy who cried wolf. When we say, there's a wolf, and then there's actually a wolf, we can't identify it and we brush it off, right? This is the problem that we've created. We see this everywhere in our culture today, but one of the hot topics right now is Columbia University. Columbia University is offering a graduation ceremony, six of them. Six graduation ceremonies based on race, ethnicity, and income status. I know it's income status. I think it's kind of tough that we've gone from getting everyone to be equal and included, and that's what we were really hoping for in the back in the days of Martin Luther King. That was what was just inclusion. To now we are going back to segregation, I feel like it's a backwards slide for us for sure. Thoughts, Trey and Brittany and Trevor, anybody?
I mean, I definitely agree. It's a backward slide. It's crazy when you think about what people like Martin Luther King fought for, and how the ultimate goal was equality. And we talked about this a little bit in our last episode.
Yeah.
How when you strive so hard for equality that you just move past it
Yeah.
to the point you're moving in the opposite direction, getting further and further away from it. Like, who would have thought 2021 at graduation you're going to say rate based on race, ethnicity,
Yeah.
income?
That-
That seems like it should be so problematic.
It,
And yet,
it,
like,
we're
why
back
is
to the
that okay?
we're back to the Jim Crow laws. Like I feel like that's where we're at. Like we have our black and our white water fountains. Like that's not
America.
that's not America. That's not okay. And this is kind of the where I wanted to get into. Growing up, I was always told that America is a melting pot, right? And about I would say probably 7th or 8th grade, I was told it's not a melting pot, but it's a salad, right? Where we recognize each culture individually and we prop them up. I think I'd really like to get back to the melting pot, and here's why I say this. I appreciate the salad, and I appreciate what they're trying to do with that. Also, it's a little bit healthier, and Obama was in office, so we had all those Michelle Obama ruined my lunch people. But the melting pot is something that we take the cultures. We talk about St. Paddy's Day, we talk about Irish, and the reason I bring this all up is because a lot of people are like, we're appropriating Irish culture, and we're doing this, and they're making fun of mostly liberals for doing that with everything else. Why isn't this cultural appropriation what we're doing with the Irish culture? And I think that can become problematic in itself as well, where we're kind of poking fun at them because again, Wolf and the wolf story of crying wolf it's become a problem, and I think it's trying to point that out. But we need to get back to the point where we're taking cultures and we're blending them together because we're all different people coming from different cultures, and we need to appreciate and elevate all of these cultures and allow them to be intermixed in our lives rather than completely taking black people off of all cereals and completely taking, the Washington football team. Like, what are we doing here that we've gone so far in the other direction? And I think it's just an interesting topic to kind of mull over and discuss. Brittany has some thoughts she would like to throw at me.
Well, you just talked about the Washington Redskins. Like,
Yes.
I feel
Well,
like
Brittany, we don't say that.
I know. Well, I think that should have been changed. It's like saying like the Philadelphia Black Faces. It's not.
No.
It's not good. You see how uncomfortable you got when I said black faces?
No, but like,
That's
what
the
do we?
same way
It's
you should
not.
feel.
So like, when we think of mascots, what are they? We have the Warriors. We have the Celtics. These are things that we idolize, view as
Yes.
powerful. Like,
right, then
it
you
doesn't
can
have to be
say-
derogatory or demeaning. That's not what it's intended to be.
But
Yeah.
that's how the oppressed minority population felt, and
But
they
it's
pushed
not
for
how
that
they felt.
change. Yes, then
No,
who changed
they-
Out of
they
all
didn't,
the
actually,
polling I've
because
seen,
they did a lot of polls.
it was over 80% of them didn't care or liked it.
or appreciated it actually.
Yeah.
Whereas
Do we have to call them Redskins though? Can we just call them Indians or
Well, that's
Native
just been the
Americans?
name.
yeah,
I
Well,
don't
you
like
look at you look at the
Redskins.
Cleveland Indians, right? They're trying to get rid of them as well.
Who's trying to get rid of them?
The
The
same
left.
people.
The same people
same
that got rid
people
of
that got the
Washington
Redskins.
Is it like a whole like
Yeah.
white savior mentality?
That's what we're
so
talking to.
annoying because
Yes.
like what you said, if they did do polls, then these people need representation. And they need representation how they deem necessary.
And-
So if that's by saying Indian or Native American or Indigenous or whatever, I personally, I guess as a white woman, I don't like Redskins. It makes me uncomfortable. But
It's not about what it makes you. That's the
That's
problem.
true.
It makes
That's
those
true.
people uncomfortable, and then they have to change it.
Oh my word, that's exactly what the left is doing.
Yeah,
They're like,
exactly.
oh my gosh, I feel like I just had a revelation. they're like, this makes me uncomfortable as a white person, and it
Yes.
needs to be changed.
Yeah.
Disregard what they said. Now, what I did appreciate was the Cherokee. Was it Toyota?
Jeep.
Yeah.
Jeep. Oh, sorry. But the leader of that tribal group, the tribal leader of the Cherokee Indians asked that CEO, and
Yeah.
they're talking right now, and that's how it should be done,
Yeah. I mean, that's a different, completely.
Yeah, I know.
another can of worms that we can open up on another podcast.
Sorry.
It's good. No, you're good. It's great conversation, and it's great topics that we're discussing. I think we're kind of wrapping this up, coming back to where we were originally. I think it becomes dangerous when we go too far in the other direction, and that's what we're saying. So, to the people out there listening, right?
All three of them.
All three of them, and Seth's grandma. I think that what we're saying is that there needs to be a balance. In everything, there needs to be a balance, and in everything, there needs to be discernment and wisdom. And we've lost that in the cancel culture that we have. We need to, as individuals, as the silent majority, we need to take that stance in wisdom and take that stance in understanding, look at all the facts, recognize that both sides are pushing an agenda, and come to our own conclusion, right? And then, again, when we come back to that 80% pool that Trey brought up, why are we not taking those voices, and are we not pushing those voices? Because they disagreed with what the left was saying.
Which is
right?
crazy because those are the people they're claiming to represent.
Exactly. So let's not be that white savior, and let's come to a conclusion and agreement that all people can work through and have some wisdom. Trevor, you have some thoughts?
No, not really. Just kind of listening.
Just scrolling through Instagram in the middle of
Okay, all right.
middle of the
Trevor
recording
looked like he
session.
had some thoughts. I guess not.
I have a question. Is Trevor's shirt racist?
No.
The Boston Celtics.
Boston
Is
Celtics.
Cade's?
Well, then wouldn't you say the same about his Notre Dame Fighting Irish? Wouldn't that be considered?
Again, it comes back to my original
because
question.
Irish people fight a lot? Is that
Is
what it's
St.
saying?
Patty's Day?
Racist.
Is St. Patty's Day? Is St. Patty's Day cultural appropriation?
Can't be racist
Kind of.
against white
It kind
No.
of, it kind of is. It kind of isn't.
I don't
and-
think it is, but it's not a bad thing.
exactly.
Maybe from like a
exactly.
Christian perspective, when you think of like, oh, we're celebrating this great Christian hero who started 200 churches and converted 100,000 people.
by drinking a
But
lot.
let's just
of
go out and
beer.
get drunk. Like,
yeah.
I'm just
go
not
to
really
the
sure
pub.
There's
where
a
that
disconnect.
switch occurred.
There was a disconnect, and actually, in the research that I did, it was kind of interesting. They went from and it came to America. When we shifted to America, it went from celebrating. I know it went from celebrating St. Patty's. It went from celebrating St. Patty to celebrating just Irish culture. And a huge part of Irish culture, like German culture and like a lot of different cultures, Spain, is drinking. Right? You drink from a
Spain
young.
had a culture of drinking.
Yes, you drink from a culture of a young age, because historically it was because the water wasn't necessarily the cleanest, so they drank beer because it was sterile. Again, bring it to America and we start drinking a lot, and I don't know that it's a great representation of St. Patty's as an individual, but I think it's a good conversation to have. However, I would still come to the conclusion, as someone of, I guess, Irish descent, that I have no problem with it, and I appreciate the day. It's been a fun day. We've enjoyed ourselves. We're all gonna go celebrate St. Patty's Day in a responsible way, and by not drinking, but just have a good time, hang out with each other this weekend. Just have a good time of just fellowship and games and maybe a Bible study at the end. But
And we'll see you next week for another episode.
yep, we appreciate it. You guys have a wonderful day. Thank you very much. Bye.